Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming all of you guys to Wat Tung. Welcome. Nice to see all of you guys. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I get together with students to help them understand the path to enlightenment. Each Sunday I do a talk on this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I go chapter by chapter each Sunday. And since we just recently restarted this program, I'm going to be talking about chapter 1 this weekend on Sunday. I'm going to be teaching universal teachings, love, no harm, and good morals. This is going to help you to be able to understand these universal teachings that you'll see across things like Buddhism, Christianity, Muslim teachings, Judaism, Hindu teachings, any of these different teachings that you see in the world. There's some commonality that connects all of these together. So I'm going to be talking about this on Sunday. Today is the first part of a 4-part series where I'm going to be teaching loving kindness meditation. Typically, we start our class with a meditation, but today is a little bit different because I'm going to be teaching meditation first, and then we're going to actually be doing the meditation together. So I'm going to help you guys to understand what loving kindness meditation is, why it's important, and how it's going to help you in your journey to enlightenment. So welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online. As we go in our talk today, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. We have microphones here in the white bowl in the middle of the room. If you're here at the temple, if you could just get a microphone, press the gray button, you're going to see the lights come on, and you can just hold that up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can just keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with the people around you. And if you could turn it off when you're not using it, that'll ensure that we don't get any feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's joining us online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. I'll be able to see that, and then I'll be able to answer your question. And then anybody who's in Zoom, you have the added feature of being able to electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then you'll be able to ask any and all questions that you have. So let me just switch over to some visual aids here to be able to help me share this with you guys. So as I mentioned, this is the first part of a 4-part series. I'm going to be helping you to understand loving kindness meditation and building up your practice. Because one of the things that's in the mind that hinders it from being able to experience enlightenment is something called ill will, also described as anger, frustration, agitation, annoyance. This is all coming from one's own mind. Even when you're disliking other people, or maybe you even have an inner dialogue where you're degrading and diminishing yourself, this can all be eradicated. You don't have to go through life hating other people or holding grudges against other people or being resentful or hostile or bitter or irritated towards others. Oftentimes people think that this is coming from other people, but it's actually coming from your own mind. And because of that, you can actually transform it and get to the point where you don't have that any longer. Loving kindness is an important part of doing that and cultivating your mind with loving kindness meditation. But there's other teachings you would need too, besides just loving kindness meditation. Loving kindness meditation plugs into one of the core central teachings that the Buddha shares, which is called the Eightfold Path. And I'm going to show you guys to help you understand that with the words of the Buddha, where you can see that he's taught this. So if you're experiencing agitation, frustration, irritation, annoyance, or you have dislike towards others or resentment or bitterness, what I'm going to teach you today is going to help you to transform all of that. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this has been eliminated from the mind. This is accomplished through training the mind. There aren't any beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning now, you're reflecting now to be able to independently verify whether the teachings are true or false, and then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to transform your mind. And because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life that you'll see in situations where you were once angry or bitter or hostile or harsh. As you're training your mind, you'll get to the point where you won't be experiencing that any longer. You'll notice that in situations where you were once frustrated or agitated or annoyed, your mind can be quite peaceful and quite joyful. And it comes through actively training the mind. You're uprooting certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And this meditation and other things that the Buddha teaches is going to help you to be able to do that. So the meditations that the Buddha taught, there's 4 of them. And I've taught in this program already breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of meditation that the Buddha used in addition to other things, because you can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. You're going to need other things besides meditation. But in terms of meditation, this is the primary form of meditation that the Buddha used. It's called breathing mindfulness meditation, where you're focused on the breath, and anytime your mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go, and you bring your mind back to the breath. What this is training your mind to do is eliminate what's called craving, desire, attachment. This is where the mind is longing, yearning. It's holding on to things. It's wanting things to be a certain way. This is the cause of all your discontentedness. Whether you're angry or sad or frustrated or feeling guilt or shame or fear or stress or anxiety or any of those other feelings, it's all being caused by your own mind. The mind is holding on and wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get things your way, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if things don't happen the way you want them to happen, your expectations aren't being met, you'll get painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others. So this is a primary form of meditation to train your mind to let go. Let go, let go. That's what you're doing. You're not trying to eliminate your thoughts. You're actually just training your mind to be able to let them go. And you're also training your mind to have the wholesome qualities of mindfulness and concentration. What mindfulness is where you have awareness of your mind. And concentration is where you can be focused and have clarity of mind. So when your mind's on the breath, that's helping you to develop concentration. It's like exercising your mind to be able to just do one thing at a time. And when the mind moves off the breath, you're training your mind to be aware of that and notice that. Because oftentimes we go around in the unenlightened state completely unaware what's going on within our own mind. So an individual would need to know this meditation as a primary meditation to get started with. And usually I recommend people to start for at least 4 weeks, just kind of practicing breathing mindfulness meditation. Sometimes even as much as 6 or 8 weeks when they first get started on the path to enlightenment, just be working with the meditation. There's other things that you need to learn when you're first getting started, but in terms of meditation, this is the thing that you would start with, is just breathing mindfulness meditation. And that's why I spent the last 4 weeks doing a 4-part series in breathing mindfulness meditation when I restarted this program 4 weeks ago. Then once an individual has developed their breathing mindfulness meditation practice, then you move into loving kindness meditation. This is the next form of meditation that you'd like to add in to your practice. This is going to help you to eliminate the anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike. Right now, you might have certain people that you like and certain people that you dislike. That dislike is not coming from the other person. It's actually coming from your own mind. You have certain expectations of other people, wanting other people to be a certain way. The mind is craving permanence, not realizing the world is full of impermanence. And the mind has an image in its mind, it has a certain expectation that everybody should be this way. And if people meet those criteria, you like them. But if they don't meet that criteria, you dislike them. And then that's where your mind can even experience anger and hostility and bitterness and resentment and other things, because the mind's not getting what it wants, which is everybody to be this way. So this meditation is going to help you to transform your mind, rewire your mind to be loving and kind, where you can have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And then you can practice that through your intention, speech, and actions. This meditation is essentially like filling up your gas tank and then going out into the world and be loving and kind with people. Oftentimes in our relationships, when we're having difficulties and struggles, we want other people to change. You might have people like this in your life where you really want them to change. And you might have spent a lot of time trying to change those people. And you can see that it just doesn't work. Things just continue to get worse and worse and worse because your mind's wanting them to be a certain way. The way that you transform your relationships is you need to work on your own mind. when you're working on your own mind and you're learning and training your mind through these teachings, and now you're functioning differently in your relationships, that's where you'll see the real change. I know I went around for a really long time wanting my mother to change. She didn't meet my expectations when I was a kid, and I didn't even know I had those, right? As I was growing up, I wanted certain things. I wanted her to be a certain way. We always had problems, and I kept wanting her to change, even through my 20s and even into my early 30s. But when I started learning these teachings and started training my mind, I was able to transform my mind, and then it transformed our relationship. Because before, it was kind of like a log jam. Our relationship had all this resentment and hostility and judgment and expectations and ill will and all these different things in our relationship. And I needed to start pulling those logs out of our relationship, but I had to do it within my own mind. I couldn't change mom, even though I tried, right? I couldn't change her. But when I started taking these logs out of my mind and started functioning differently around mom, then mom started functioning differently too. Not because I overtly taught her to do anything different, but just because I was functioning differently, she started functioning differently. Because whatever you put out, it's going to come back to you. So if you're putting out bitterness and harshness and hostility and expecting love and kindness to come back to you, this is a lack of wisdom of how the world truly works. So when you start putting out love and kindness for a consistent long-term period of time, more and more you'll see that's what's coming back to you. So this meditation is going to help you to do that. But you're going to need other things as well to be able to help you. You can't just meditate your way to this love and kindness. This is where the Eightfold Path comes in, which I've been teaching over the last 4 weeks. And I'm also going to be teaching this next week as well. On Tuesday, I'll be teaching this as part of a course that I'm teaching next week, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. There's going to be 5 days of teaching where I'm going to be helping students to build a real foundation in this path. And it's available at no cost. You're always welcome to come here. If you're here at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, you'll be right where you need to be able to go forward with that course. And I'll help you guys to understand what I'm going to be teaching. You can see this on our website. You can see it on the bulletin board over there. You can ask me questions and I'll be able to help you to understand what I'm going to be teaching in this course. But this particular meditation is something you're going to need to integrate into your day-to-day life in order to transform your relationships by first transforming your mind. What loving kindness is its active goodwill towards all beings without judgment, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You're not judging other people, expecting them to be a certain way and trying to determine whether they deserve your love and kindness. Because sometimes that's what we're taught. We're taught don't respect others until they respect you first. And if you've been taught this and everybody practiced that, nobody would be respecting anybody. Because if everybody was sitting back, was like, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Okay, well, nobody's respecting anybody, right? So if we do that with our love and our kindness, like, I'm not going to be loving and kind to you until you're loving and kind to me first. Well, I'm not going to be loving and kind to you until you're loving and kind to me. Okay, nobody's loving and kind to anybody then, right? That's the way the world's going to be. But an individual who has wisdom understands that in order for you to experience loving kindness coming back, you're going to need to first be putting that out. So you're not interested in judging other people to determine whether they deserve your loving kindness or not. You're interested in just practicing being loving and kind with people because you understand it's the wise thing to do, not because you have any expectation of them to be any particular way. So when I was being loving and kind with mom, I wasn't expecting her to change, but I did notice that's what occurred, right? So this loving kindness in the Pali language, which is the historical language that the teachings of the Buddha are captured in, you might hear people refer to this as metta, but loving kindness is the English way to refer to this. This is the antidote, or what we call the wholesome root, or the remedy for anger, hatred, and ill will in all the lesser versions. It's going to help you eliminate the harshness, bitterness, hostility, the resentment, all of those types of things from the mind will be uprooted from the mind. even if you have a negative inner dialogue. Sometimes people have this diminishing, degrading dialogue within their own mind where you're constantly degrading yourself. And if you have that, this meditation is going to help you to resolve that. It's part of something called the Brahma Viharas. You might have heard this. This is another Pali word. The way to think about the Brahma Viharas is there are 4 healthy mental states that you're cultivating in order to remedy certain aspects of the mind. So loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are 4 healthy mental states that you'll learn when we get to chapter 14 of this book, and you'll be able to understand what these are and what they're actually antidoting, because they're actually eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind. So these Brahma Viharas are something separate that you would learn and that you're going to be able to understand in order to be able to apply them as tools in your day-to-day life. But loving kindness is one of the Brahma Viharas, or one of those healthy mental states to cultivate. In terms of the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha that I've already taught in this program up to this point, and I teach it many times throughout the month and throughout the year because it's such an integral part of your journey to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without deeply understanding the Eightfold Path in the original words of the Buddha. If you haven't studied the Eightfold Path with the original words of the Buddha, you haven't even started on the path to enlightenment yet. So you're going to need that, and that's why I give these books away for free. You can download them for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get them here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost, and you can get them on Amazon, because they have the original words of the Buddha on all of his different teachings. And the Eightfold Path is one of the ones that you really need because it's a core central teaching. Well, here what I'm doing is I'm showing a few places within the Eightfold Path that loving kindness plugs in, because one of the things that I share with people is that the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching, and it is the path to enlightenment. And you can see where loving kindness plugs into it as early as right intention. This is the second factor on the Eightfold Path. The Buddha's words on right intention is he talks about the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Well, what the intention of renunciation is it's the thinking or the thought that you need to cultivate within your mind to be willing to let go. That there's certain things that your mind is holding on to, certain false beliefs, certain opinions or views that you hold. There are certain things that you're holding on to. And as long as you hold on to those things, even unwholesome conduct, as long as you're holding on to those things, you won't get to enlightenment. Because where you are right now in your life, if you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and agitation and all these other feelings, there are certain things in your life that in your mind that you just don't have wisdom about. There's a certain lack of wisdom. So if you hold on to the things that you currently think about the world, that you currently believe about the world, your certain views and opinions, you'll never actually experience enlightenment. But the way the teachings of the Buddha work is that you're not eliminating your false opinions, your false views, your false beliefs, and bringing in new beliefs. That's not what you're doing on the path to enlightenment. You're actually cultivating wisdom about the way the world truly works and the natural laws. And when you see that that wisdom conflicts with your beliefs, you need to be willing to let go of those false beliefs and bring in this wisdom to now truly understand the way the world functions. So one of the first false beliefs that you need to eliminate is that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. As long as you hold on to that, you'll never actually get to enlightenment, because you'll go around the world pushing people away or pushing a situation away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you'll start putting expectations on people, trying to pressure them or control them to do things your way. So you need to be able to understand the first step of the Eightfold Path, which is called right view, where you can see very clearly in a way that you independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And when you see that, you can cultivate the wisdom through independent verification that that's the truth. And now when you bring in that wisdom, you're going to need to practice renunciation, where you're willing to let go of this false belief, this false opinion, this false view. And there's certain unwholesome moral conduct that you're going to need to be willing to let go of as well. Then there's this intention of non-ill will. The way English works is whenever you see a double negative, it's a positive, right? So the idea of non-ill will This means goodwill. So what the Buddha is teaching you is you need to cultivate the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill. That's loving kindness. But how could you cultivate that in the mind if you didn't have a tool to do it, a technique to do it? Right? So that's what the Buddha is providing you with the loving kindness meditation, is a way to cultivate this loving kindness in your mind, because that's where your speech and your actions are going to emanate from. If you don't have the intention or thinking or thoughts of goodwill in your mind, then what's going to come out of your mouth and what's going to come out from your bodily actions is ill will. And you know that you've been in situations where that's occurred, and you can see the results that it produced. When you were bitter and harsh and hostile with people, relationships ended, or maybe you lost a job, or maybe there was some other unwholesome result that you experienced. That's called unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So as long as you hold on to this bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind, it's going to now inform your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now it's going to damage relationships, and you're not going to be able to have harmonious relationships. So the Buddha teaches you to uproot this out of your mind by bringing in the intention of goodwill or loving kindness. And now your intention, speech, and actions can emanate from that. And now more and more you can be loving and kind with the people around you. But this meditation is not going to be like a snap of the fingers and you're instantly going to be loving and kind. There's going to need to be a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know that to be true because everything you've ever done in life has been that way, right? Whether it's learning to read, write, and speak a certain language like English, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Or some job or occupation that you have, or some hobby, gradual training, gradual practice, gradual progress. It's the same thing with enlightenment. So you're going to need to gradually cultivate this loving kindness in your mind over a consistent long-term period. And now with that intention of goodwill in your mind, it'll inform your intention, speech, and actions. And now you can be more loving and kind in all the relationships around you. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, all your relationships are harmonious. You don't have negative and harsh and bitter and hostile relationships. Sometimes people hold on to resentment and ill will within their own mind, and they think that maybe they're getting back at somebody else. Sometimes we hold on to grudges in the unenlightened state, thinking we're getting back at that person. Maybe you have an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend, or maybe your parents or your brothers and sisters. You're holding on to this grudge, thinking you're getting back at that person. But really what it's like holding on to a hot coal and trying to burn somebody else. The only person getting burned is you, because your mind is holding on to that. So uprooting this ill will out of the mind by practicing the intention of non-ill will is going to allow you to put down that hot coal and stop being burned by that anger and hostility in your mind. And then the other part here that the Buddha is teaching is this intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you're causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. Now, as you've heard me mention a few times, that it's not other people that is causing you to be angry and sad and frustrated. So when we talk about causing harm to others, what we're talking about is causing harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. You can cause harm to somebody, but you can't cause them to be discontent. You can't cause them to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed, just like other people can't cause you to experience those feelings. If you're experiencing any of those feelings, it's coming from your own mind. But you can cause people harm. And now it creates an environment where their cravings, desires, attachments can be triggered, and now they can cause themselves to be discontent. So the Buddha teaches you not to cause harm to others, because then that harm is going to come back to you. So that's part of right intention, and it's going to help you with your loving kindness meditation, because if you're causing harm to others, physical body, their material possessions, their reputation, and things like this, there's a certain amount of ill will that's in the mind. And you would like to erase that and eliminate it out of the mind, so you're no longer doing that. Because as long as you keep putting out harm, this harm will come back to you. Then if you have ever studied the teachings of the Buddha in right speech in the Eightfold Path, there's a portion of right speech where the Buddha teaches eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. These aren't rules. These aren't commandments. What he's showing you is this cause and effect, or this action and result. That when you lie, when you gossip and slander, when you have harsh speech, when you have frivolous speech, which is unbeneficial, unpurposeful speech, this is going to cause difficulties and struggles in your own day-to-day life, because you're putting out this unwise speech, and now there's going to be harm that comes back to you. But then there's a deeper teaching called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And this is where you can really hone in on the way you communicate in the world, whether it's spoken communication, or whether it's social media or text messages or emails or anything like this. He teaches you to speak at the proper time. He teaches you to speak the truth, speak gently, speak beneficially, and speak with a mind of loving kindness. Because when you don't speak this way, your conversations can go off the rails sometimes. You can look at your own life and verify this. When you haven't spoken at the proper time, meaning you've interrupted people, or your mind was angry or frustrated, or the other person's mind was angry or frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk in those situations. Or speaking the truth. If we tell lies, people discover those lies, and then they realize that we're not dependable, or we're not reliable, we're not trustworthy, and it damages our relationships. When we speak harsh, when we're not speaking gently, maybe our tone, our tempo, and our word choice is not exactly what it could be, then we damage our relationships. Or if we speak unbeneficially, where we're not clear, we're not concise, we're not to the point, we're not purposeful in the way that we speak, this is going to affect us in a negative way. Or if we speak without a mind of loving kindness, which it would be like with inner hate. If you've ever can look at your life and you can see where you've done that, it's produced unwholesome results for you. So the Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time, speak the truth, speak gentle, speak beneficial, and speak with a mind of loving kindness. But how could you do that if you didn't understand and have a technique and a way to practice to build up the loving kindness in your mind? So that's where the meditation comes in, that it's going to help you with your speech and your actions. Here's a teaching from the Buddha where he's talking to his ordained practitioners, and he's talking to them about the 5 factors of well-spoken speech prior to this. And he's reminding his students that he's saying, hey, I advise you to speak at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. But then he was reminding them, he said, other people aren't going to speak to you that way necessarily. They're going to speak to you in an untimely way. They're going to speak falsehoods. They're going to speak harsh. They're going to speak unbeneficially. And they're going to speak with a mind of inner hate. And when other people speak that way to you, this is what he taught them. He said, herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected, and we shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness. And starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train monks. So if you understand this natural laws that the Buddha teaches you, you would understand the last thing you're interested in is putting out bitterness and harshness and hostility, because that's exactly what's going to come back to you. And that's where a lot of us have been at different times in our life. Maybe that's where you are right now, and that's okay. You're not a bad person. It's just that your mind lacks wisdom, it lacks training, and it's not able to practice loving kindness in 100% of all situations. But that's why someone would come to a place like this to learn how to do that. Because you can get to a point where you're being loving and kind in 100% of all situations. And when you do that for an extended long-term period of time, that's where you're going to see more and more love and kindness coming back in your day-to-day life. But you're going to need to be able to build up your practice and do that for a very long period of time so that more and more you'll be able to see that the loving kindness is coming back to you. But it's not like you're going to be practicing for 10 years and then just all of a sudden everyone's going to be loving and kind. You're going to see that even as you're starting to practice that day by day, week by week, month by month, you're going to start seeing more and more love, more and more kindness in your day-to-day life. And this is going to be very beneficial for you. But some of those more challenging relationships, maybe like with your parents or your siblings or your life partner or your children, because you've been bitter and harsh and hostile in those relationships for a longer period of time, it's going to take you a longer period of time of being loving and kind before you extinguish all your unwholesome karma. So for example, in my life, I met my wife many years ago, and for the first 11 years of our marriage and our relationship, I was sometimes bitter and harsh and hostile, right? But then I started changing. I started changing the way I interacted. And once I changed, it took about 1.5 years for her to completely transform her mind and for her to be loving and kind to me in all situations, right? So it took me about 1.5 years to burn off my unwholesome results of 11 years of being bitter and harsh and hostile to her in certain situations. So you're going to need to spend some time to be loving and kind for an extended period of time. And then now it's been probably 5 years since I've experienced bitterness and harshness and hostility coming from her. For a complete 5 years, right? It's been that way, right? So you can get to a point where your relationships are all loving and kind and warm and gentle, and you don't experience this bitterness and harshness and hostility, but you got to change your own mind first. So what the Buddha is teaching you is that when other people are bitter and harsh and hostile to you, don't be bitter and harsh and hostile back, because that's just keeping things going in your relationships where there's bitterness and harshness and hostility. One of the ways that I think about it is that when me and mom were together, for example, it was like fireworks going off, right? Like mom would pick up the rubber ball of anger and she would throw it around the room. And then I'd pick up the rubber ball of anger and I'd throw it around the room, and she'd pick it up, throw it around the room. And next thing you know, we got all these rubber balls of anger and hostility bouncing around the room. You might have some people like that in your life, right? Well, I started doing things differently. When mom picked up the rubber ball of anger and she threw it around the room, understanding the teachings of the Buddha, I just let the ball roll to the corner and lose its energy. I stopped picking up the rubber ball of anger. I didn't throw it around anymore, and it lost its energy. And that's what you're going to need to do. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, is don't pick up the rubber ball of anger. When people are bitter and harsh and hostile, you're not causing that, and you can't fix it. That individual has to choose to let go of whatever their mind is holding on to, and they need to learn to be loving and kind and warm and gentle. You're not going to be able to fix them. They have to choose it for themselves. So when someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile towards you, just walk away. That's the best thing to do, because it's not the proper time to be speaking in that situation. So the meditation is going to help you to understand one of the most loving and kind things you can do when someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile is walk away. And they might actually become even more angry when you walk away. But that's because they're attached to you. They're holding on to you. They're wanting you to be in that conversation with them. That's their expectation. So when you're walking away and someone's becoming more and more angry, let that be proof to you that you're making the wise decision. Because if you stay in the conversation, it doesn't give their mind an opportunity to let go. But when you walk away, it allows their mind to actually let go. And it's going to take multiple times of doing this before their mind fully lets go. And then what people learn slowly but surely is if they're interested in speaking with you, they're going to need to be calm, because as soon as they're bitter and harsh and hostile, you walk away. And slowly but surely, they're going to learn to talk to you in loving and kind ways. You're not overtly teaching them, but they're learning through your actions. And this is the way that I transformed my relationship with my mom and my wife as well, that when I stopped being bitter and harsh and hostile, but they were continuing to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, I would just walk away. And then slowly but surely, they learned, if I would like to talk to this guy, I'm going to need to be calm. He's not going to talk to me if I'm angry and hostile and bitter. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, is not to be bitter and harsh and hostile with that person who's talking in an unwise way. Instead, have nothing but loving kindness for them, meaning a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And one of the things you can do is just choose to walk away and understand that they're going to need to let go. And when they let go, that's what's going to help them regain their peace and their joy. So these are some more teachings of the Buddha, and then I'm going to teach you how to do this loving kindness meditation. This is some more words from the Buddha on loving kindness and loving kindness meditation, so you can see what he taught on this. Because a Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's teaching. You can see it in his own words. This first one here, he's actually teaching his son. Some people think that the Buddha left his family and never came back. This isn't actually true. If you study the original teachings of the Buddha, you can see that he came back to where his family was. His son ordains with him. His wife ordains with him. His mother, which was essentially his stepmother, ordains with him. A lot of his cousins and brother-in-laws and people like this, they were all ordaining with him to learn how to get to enlightenment, because they could tell that he had gotten to enlightenment. So here he's teaching his son Rahula. He says, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. Very clear, very concise. You don't have to interpret that. You don't have to figure out what he was saying. He's telling you very clearly, it's loving kindness meditation that will eliminate your ill will. That's what he did. He figured it out. He got to this peace and joy. And now he's explaining to you, what did he do in order to get to this peace and joy? Then he says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. Again, very clear, very concise, very much to the point. And here's another one. So let me set this up and help you understand where this is coming from. This, again, is an excerpt from the teachings of the Buddha. 2,500 years ago, in what we refer to as Northeast India, is where the Buddha taught. He was born in Nepal, and then he taught in Northeast India. And when a Buddha is in the world, you might think that he's the only one teaching, because if the Buddha existed during your lifetime, you'd probably be interested in learning from that person. But when a Buddha is in the world, there's other people teaching too, and they might be claiming that it's their teachings that are leading to enlightenment. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were plenty of other teachers who were teaching, and they were all claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. But the Buddha knew it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. But oftentimes the students that were learning with the Buddha would come in contact with students who were learning from other teachers, right? Just like different students might interact today with different teachers, right? Or different students. And as these individuals were interacting with each other, they would talk and they would kind of compare notes about what one teacher is teaching versus another. So here, the Buddha is saying to his students, suppose they ask, meaning those other students from other teachers, suppose they ask, but what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of the mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of the mind by loving kindness, unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. What unarisen anger is right now sitting here, you're probably not angry. You're probably not frustrated or agitated or annoyed, perhaps. If you are, your own mind is causing that. But let's just assume that your mind isn't experiencing any anger. That's unarisen anger, because there's no anger in your mind right now. But you have something called ill will in the mind. It's a deeply rooted mental object in the mind. It's like we refer to it as a fetter or a taint or a pollution. If something happened, that ill will could arise. It's not in your mind right now in terms of the anger is not up in the front of your mind, the forefront of your mind, but you have this deeply rooted container in the mind that should something not meet your expectations, that anger could arise at any point. So that's unarisen anger. And the Buddha is saying, suppose they ask, what is it that doesn't allow this unarisen anger to arise? It's loving kindness. But then he goes on and he says, arisen anger can be abandoned through loving kindness meditation or practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life. So whenever you have anger that has arisen in your mind, where your mind is currently angry, the way to get rid of that is loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in day-to-day life through your intention, speech, and actions. So anytime you go out into the world, if you notice that there's anger that's rising up in your mind, you can get rid of that and bring in loving kindness, where you can be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. And it's this meditation that I'm going to teach you that's going to help you to fill up your gas tank. So now when you go out into the world, you're naturally going to be more loving and kind. But if at any point you see this anger arising, you can bring in that loving kindness to knock it down and abandon it out of the mind, so that now you can be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions before I teach you loving kindness meditation. Do you have any questions on anything that I shared? Remember, if you could use the mics here, and those of you guys online, if you could put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay, let me see here. Okay, I don't see any questions online. Oh, you have a question, Eamon? Yeah.
Thank you, teacher. Is there anybody who shouldn't meditate?
No. Meditation is not harmful. If someone understands how to meditate and they have the guidance they need, there's nothing harmful about meditation at all. Essentially, the way you can think about it is like exercising the mind. It's like taking your mind to the gym and you're exercising the mind. Anybody can do any amount of physical activity, even someone who has a herniated disc, right? They could do just light arm lifts or, little stretches here and there. There's always some amount of physical activity that somebody could do in order to be able to give the body a little bit of activity. So it's the same thing with the mind. Anybody and anybody could actually train the mind, but it's important to know how to do it, because nowadays there's so many hundreds and thousands of meditations out there that were never taught by the Buddha. And if you understand the path to enlightenment, you see these meditations, you know that it's actually taking the mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. And this can actually be problematic for somebody, because if they don't have the wisdom of what you should be doing with the mind in order to get it to enlightenment, they won't recognize that that meditation is actually making their mind worse and putting it in a worse condition. But if you understand the actual path to enlightenment and what needs to happen with the mind, you'll know exactly what needs to happen. And the Buddha's teachings help you to be able to see that. So there can be meditations that people do that takes their mind in the opposite direction, and it can actually degrade and diminish the mind, but that's not what the Buddha taught. So in terms of, is there anybody that shouldn't do the meditations that the Buddha taught? No, everybody and anybody can do it. But there's certainly meditations out there, tons of them, that I wouldn't advise anybody to do, because it's actually taking the mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment, and it can actually degrade the quality of the mind rather than improving it.
I've heard it, again, I don't know if this is from the Buddha, but in some instances, perhaps people should look at living life more skillfully, making more skillful decisions based on the Eightfold Path before they'd even contemplate meditation, believing that if someone was to begin a meditation practice, and when they're not in meditating, they're off doing any number of making really bad decisions, it could be detrimental.
Yeah, nowadays when people are learning something like the teachings of the Buddha, oftentimes people are starting with meditation, which is not where the Buddha actually taught. The Buddha started with right view, because unless you understand right view, which is the Four Noble Truths, what right view is teaching you what's actually causing these discontent feelings. If you don't start with that, you have no idea why you're even meditating and what the purpose of it is and what you're actually trying to accomplish. So the Buddha would start his students with right view. Then he would teach them the moral conduct, right? Because as long as your moral conduct is unwise and unwholesome, you're just causing more and more difficulties within your own life and for other people. And then he would teach them the meditation, where today people have it backwards. They're actually learning meditation first, which according to the Buddha, the way that he taught, according to what I've seen in helping students all these years, it's not the best place to start. Not that there's anything wrong with it, not that it's harmful. It's just not the best place to start. The best place to start is with right view, then teaching the moral conduct, then the meditation. And that can all be done within a few days, right? It's not like you have to wait months before you experience that. But there's just a certain sequence that you'd like to build, because building this practice to get to enlightenment, it's like building a house. You need a strong foundation, you need the walls, you need the ceiling, the rafters, you need all these things to be built in a certain sequence. And if you don't have a really strong foundation, which is right view, then anything else you build on top of it isn't going to work, right? So it's going to just come crumbling down on somebody. So there's a certain sequence of how to teach these teachings, and it's really important that we do that, because the Buddha figured it out 2,500 years ago. There's no reason to try to reinvent that, because he's already figured it out perfectly of exactly how to do it. So that's what I do, is I teach students in that same sequence. Okay, so now let me teach you guys this loving kindness meditation. The way that we do loving kindness meditation is we start with chanting to ease our mind into the meditation. And if you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. The chants are on a laminated sheet over there. You're welcome to get one. You guys even can pass them around the room if you'd like, so that people can get a chanting sheet, because I'm going to be chanting these on the way into the meditation. And you guys are welcome to chant along if you'd like. This is going to help you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. We're going to be chanting in the Pali language. You're going to see the English translations on there as well. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. That every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is the way they committed them to their memory, so that they could actually practice the teachings. So there isn't anything mystical or magical with these chants. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It's just nowadays to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used to commit the teachings to your memory, so that they could then actually practice the teachings, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. If you look at the English translations, you're going to see a lot of respect and gratitude and appreciation for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't even think that the Buddha actually created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect to me, right? This would be arrogance, or this would be pride. This would be putting yourself above other people. And an individual who's a Buddha wouldn't actually do that. So I'm confident that these teaching, or these particular chants, did not come from the Buddha. They probably came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So I'm going to be chanting this on the way in, and you're welcome to chant along with me if you'd like. For anybody who's online, you'll find this chanting sheet on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see it there. Then after the chanting, I'm going to guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation session. That first meditation that I mentioned, that's going to be focused on your breath. And anytime your mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. I'm going to guide you in that for a period of time. And then there's going to be a little bit of quietness, kind of like 3 minutes or so of just quietness, where we're just all meditating together, everyone here and everyone online. But then I'm going to come back in after that with the loving kindness meditation. You're going to hear me saying these phrases. I'm going to be saying things like, may I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. And you're going to do this on the out breath. They're going to be really slow, where they're going to be coming out. You're going to hear me saying them out loud, but you can just do this internally within your own mind. This is where the rewiring is happening. You're rewiring your mind to be more loving and kind to this being who you are. Because in order to be loving and kind to others, you're going to need to be loving and kind to this being, right? If you don't know how to love yourself, how could you love other people, right? So you're going to need to do that. And that's what's going to help you eliminate the negative self-talk, the degrading and diminishing inner dialogue within your own mind. Then we're going to go through these successive rings. This is just a learning aid. I'm actually going to do about 5 or 6 different rings, where we're going to get wider and wider and wider. You're going to hear me say things like, may mom and dad be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. Things like this. And we're not trying to invoke some special power to come in and change mom and dad. We're not trying to change other people through our meditation. What you're doing is you're trying to transform your mind to think of mom and dad, for example, in a more loving and kind way. So that then when you're doing this regularly over the course of your weeks and months, now when you spend time with mom and dad, or you talk to them on the phone, you can be more loving and kind because your mind has essentially been rewired, right? So now when you're loving and kind with mom and dad over time, that's when you'll see the loving kindness coming back to you. So we're not trying to change mom and dad through our meditation. You're changing your mind to think of mom and dad in a more loving and kind way so that then you can interact with them in a more loving and kind way. And that's where things change for you in your relationships. So we're going to go through successive rings until eventually we get to all beings, because you're not interested in leaving anyone out. And you're actually able to customize this for yourself. What you're going to hear me using is very general statements like, may my family and friends and neighbors and coworkers be peaceful and safe and well and free of discontentedness. That's just because I'm leading you guys, and it needs to apply to everybody. But if you have someone in your life that you're angry and frustrated and having resentment in your mind, when you do this on your own, you're going to need to include them in your meditation. You might actually use their name, right? If you have somebody named Bob in your life, or maybe this person's even not in your life anymore. Maybe they're an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe they're actually dead. Maybe you're not even ever going to see them again. If you're holding on to bitterness and hostility in your mind, you're not going to be able to experience the peace and joy of this enlightened mental state where your mind's permanently peaceful and permanently joyful. So even if you're never going to see this person again, when you're doing this on your own, you might need to say, may Bob be peaceful. May Bob be safe. May Bob be well. May Bob be free of discontentedness. So you're going to need to include people who you have anger and hostility towards. And then eventually you get to all beings, and because you're not interested in leaving anyone out. So the way that people tend to do this is they start with I, they end with all beings. And then they do like a ring or two right after I. They do like a ring or two of people you already have loving kindness for, to kind of bubble that up in the mind a little bit. Then you do like a ring or two of people that you're more neutral about. You don't love them, but you don't hate them. You're kind of like you're just kind of neutral about this. Maybe it's like a neighbors or coworkers or people like this. So that loving kindness can kind of bubble over into that group. Then you kind of end it off before you get to all beings with some people that you do have anger and hostility towards, so that you can bring that loving kindness and kind of bubble it into that group of people, so that your mind can be more loving and kind when you're thinking about those people or you're interacting with those people or anything like that. And then after our loving kindness meditation, we're going to go back to breathing mindfulness for a little bit. Then we're going to come out of this with some chanting. The way that I think about this is it's kind of like a loving kindness sandwich. In the middle, you've got loving kindness, right? And then the lettuce and tomato is the breathing mindfulness meditation. And then the thing that's holding it all together, the bread, that's the chanting, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're creating a loving kindness sandwich. Okay, so any questions on this that you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay, so the Buddha taught meditation in 4 different positions: seated, lying, standing, and walking. With loving kindness meditation, we tend to do this in the seated, lying, or standing positions. We don't do it in the walking position. It doesn't really work out in the walking position. So you can use any of these 3 positions for loving kindness meditation. I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position, because that's usually how people are first learning, is in the seated position. So this can be some suggestions for you, something for you to consider, because in terms of any of these body positions for meditation, there isn't just one way to do it. You need to find whatever's comfortable for you. Whatever I share with you here are just suggestions, just things for you to consider to find something even more comfortable for you than perhaps you already are. So with the seated position, you could be sitting on the floor, you could be sitting in a chair, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair or something like this. You can sit however you're comfortable. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions. This is kind of going to soften your seat a bit, make it more comfortable for you. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you like to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede your circulation and it can cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So you might consider doing that. Your hands and your arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's multiple options here, and you can consider any of these and find what works best for you. You might decide to put your hands on your thighs or on your knees. Some people like to put their palms up. Some people like to just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever is comfortable for you, even if it's something I'm not teaching. Just find whatever is comfortable for you. In terms of anybody who's sitting in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or wheelchair, same thing. You can sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So that's an option as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. In terms of your upper body, oftentimes it's best if you have your sternum up and your shoulders back. This is what the Buddha taught, because it helps keep the mind attentive and alert during your meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from your mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in your mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull and lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the upper body in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance, and you'll see how the meditation goes. I'll help you throughout the meditation. Okay? If you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these affirmations in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May my family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who have caused me harm be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato โตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังปุโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So again, this is loving kindness meditation. We did some breathing mindfulness meditation at the beginning and we did some at the end, but what we just did in the middle was loving kindness meditation. This is to transform your mind away from the anger, the hostility, the bitterness, the harshness. Going down this path of being loving and kind to all people around you, it can be a challenge, right? It's not easy because the mind has these pollutions that are in the mind. And this is a tool that's going to help you with that. One of the ways you can think about this improvement on this path to enlightenment and going forward in life, being loving and kind and friendly and respectful with everybody around you, is it's like forging a new path. It's like getting out a machete and cutting through the stickers and the bushes and the branches, and it's forging this new path. It's a challenge. But this old path that you might have been down many, many times, that the bushes are pushed back and the grass is worn out, this path of bitterness and harshness and hostility, you've been down that path many times. You know where that path leads. It leads to broken relationships. It leads to heartache and misery, right? Continuing to go down that path is unwise. So forging this new path, while it's a challenge, this is the path that's going to help you to be able to get to that peace and that joy, being loving and kind and respectful and friendly to everybody around you. And again, it's going to take time. This isn't a snap your fingers and instantly become loving and kind with the people around you. You're going to need more than just loving kindness meditation. You're gradually wearing away the anger, the harshness, the bitterness, the hostility, and gradually bringing in the love and the kindness through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. The Buddha actually gave a really good analogy on this about what's happening as you're transforming the mind. If you can imagine if you had a digging tool with a wooden handle and you were digging with this tool every single day, you're going to be wearing away wood from the handle of this tool every single day. But you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away each day. But when this handle is completely exhausted and you need to replace it, you're going to know that. Right? So each day you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away, but when the handle's completely exhausted, you're going to know that. The same thing is true about your anger and your hostility and your bitterness and all these other pollutions in the mind. The Buddha explains how you're not going to know how much you're wearing away each individual day. But when it's completely gone, you're going to know that. Because when it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you haven't been angry or frustrated or agitated with your mom, with your brother, your sisters, and all these other people, you'll know that your mind's been completely transformed. And this is going to be happening with each individual relationship. So with my mom, I worked on that relationship first within my own mind and in my day-to-day life interacting with her. We got to a point where there was no bitterness, there was no hostility. The last 10 years of her life, we didn't experience any hostility or bitterness or anything like that. Our relationship was nothing but loving and kind and warm and gentle. but I still had issues in my relationship with my wife because it hadn't been fully worn away. There was still some ill will in my mind, so still some anger. So I needed to work on my mind for that, right? So slowly but surely, I was wearing this anger away. Each day I was meditating with my mom in my meditation. I was wearing away the anger, but I didn't know how much. But when it was completely gone, when it had been 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, I wasn't angry with mom anymore. This works. Same thing true with my wife in my situation, right? Each day when I was doing this meditation, I didn't know how much I was wearing away, but when it was completely gone and we hadn't been arguing for a really long time and there was no bitterness and harshness in my mind, I knew that it was completely gone. So it's the same thing with that digging tool. You're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away each day, but when the handle needs to be replaced, you'll know that. Right? So what you need to be able to have is determination, dedication, and diligence. You need to have confidence that you're headed in the right direction. And you'll be able to see this on an incremental basis. You'll be able to see maybe when you go to the airport, you're a bit more friendly and kind and loving with the ticket agent or the flight attendants or the people at the restaurant. Or when you're walking down the street, maybe you're smiling a bit more when you're interacting with people. Maybe people here, when we're done class, maybe you're more friendly with the people here, being a bit more loving and kind around people that are also being loving and kind. And that'll help you when you go out there to be more loving and kind with the people around you. But little by little, you can just bring more and more of that loving kindness into your mind. And remember, what this meditation is doing is it's transforming your mind. It's not about changing other people. There's no part about this path to enlightenment that is about changing other people. It's about doing the work within your own mind and transforming your own mind so that now you can go out into the world and be more loving and kind. And that's where you'll see different results for yourself. So I'm going to see if you guys have any questions on anything I've been teaching you today. Remember, if you guys could use the mics here, and those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and let me know what questions you have. So is there anybody here or anybody online that has questions? Yes, sir.
I really appreciate the idea that you deliver the principle that we should treat the world with kindness and loving, and the world will somehow echoing back with the same energy. And but I'm a little bit confused about if we are already in a toxic relationship and you treat your counterpart with respectfulness, kindness, and gratitude, generosity, but ever your counterpart is not a reflective or self-aware one. And what if they your kindness in a bad way? And is that a potential that you will end up in being exploited in the relationship?
You can't ever be exploited in a relationship because anything you do is a choice that you're making. So no one else can force you to do any one particular thing. So you're making your own choices, and you need to look at a situation and decide what it is that you're willing to do in any given situation and making wise decisions. Everything that the Buddha taught is based on discernment or wise decision making. And if you're in a relationship that has a lot of bitterness and harshness and hostility, and you've been transforming your mind and you've learned the Eightfold Path and you've been practicing it, and you can see this other person has no interest in improving the way that they're interacting with you, in those situations, it's best to just move on from the relationship. But you're going to have a hard time doing that because your mind might be clinging and holding on, particularly with like a life partner or something like this. It can be really challenging for someone's mind to let go because oftentimes there's such an emotional attachment. There can be sex in a relationship. There can be financial attachment. There can be, spending time with this person physically. There can be worries about how other people are going to view you when you choose to end this relationship and things like this. So you need to be willing to take your peacefulness and your joy and you building this ideal life as a first priority. No matter what you're doing in your life, whether it's a career, whether it's acquiring basic necessities to sustain life or wealth or anything in your life, you need to take your development of your mind as being the number one priority. Because if your mind and your life isn't going well, you're not going to be able to experience peace and joy. It's kind of like a computer has a CPU in it. And if the CPU is not well, the whole computer doesn't function. It's the same thing as that if your mind's not well, your whole life's going to feel quite miserable for you. So there's certain relationships that you might be in right now that there's too much bitterness, too much hostility, maybe on your side and their side too. And you're not committed to the relationship and you'd rather just move on. And that's the way to clean that up, is just move on from the relationship. Any anger, hostility, or bitterness that you have in your mind, you need to understand that it's coming from your own mind. It's not that other person that's causing it. And just choosing to leave the relationship isn't going to fix it, right? Because you still need to do the work on your own mind. So as long as you understand that you still need to do work on your own mind, leaving the relationship can allow you to step away. And like I mentioned, maybe you're not committed to this relationship. Friends or people like this, you might just choose to walk away from the relationship. And you don't have to go to the person and tell them that's what they're doing. You don't have to download a bunch of reasons of why you're doing it. You can just choose to just gradually walk away. Now, if it's a more significant relationship, like a married couple or something like that, of course, there's like legal things that you need to do. But if it's just like a friend or somebody like that, you can just choose to gradually walk away. And that's one way of cleaning up what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life. There's a second category of relationships, people that you're maybe having difficulties with in your relationships within your own mind, understanding it's coming from your own mind. But you're more committed, you're more dedicated in these relationships. Maybe like my mom and my wife, right? Maybe you have people like that in your life. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to maybe step away from the relationship for a period of time, work on your own mind, and then come back into the relationship so that you can be better. So there were times when I would step away from my relationship with my mom for maybe 3 to 5 years sometimes, where I didn't talk to my mom. I was just kind of off on my own, working on my own mind. Same thing with my wife. We separated a few times during our relationship and I went and lived somewhere else, and I needed to work on my own mind before I could come back into the relationship and be better. So you might have those kinds of relationships where you're more committed and more dedicated to them, and you need to step away, either physically or mentally. You need to step away, work on your own mind, and then you can come back and you can be better in those relationships. Then there's a third category of relationships. These are brand new people that you haven't even met yet. You don't even know their names. You're only ever going to be loving and kind to those people. And then that's all you're going to see coming back in those relationships, right? So this is how you actually clean up your life in your relationships. You let go of certain relationships and move on, and that's going to clean up that unwholesome results that you're experiencing in that life or in those relationships. But you need to do the work on your own mind. Then there's relationships you're currently in that you're going to need to maybe step away from. You're more committed to them, but you need to step away from them in order to train your mind, and now you can be better in those relationships. Then there's that third category of brand new people that you haven't even met yet. You don't even know their names, but when you spend time with these people, you'll only ever be loving and kind. But you're going to need to know how to do this beyond just this meditation. That's why the Eightfold Path is so important, and I taught that already in this particular program. I did a 3-part series on the Eightfold Path, because just saying that you're loving and kind and you're generous, if you haven't really actually learned how to do it through the Eightfold Path, you might actually not be as loving and kind as you might think, right? If you haven't learned right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, the actual using the words of the Buddha, then you might be speaking in ways that you think are wonderful, but if you look at the natural laws and the way that the Buddha taught, they may not be. So that's why it's important to, before you choose to step away from a relationship, is make sure you do the work to really build up your Eightfold Path within your own life and in your own practice first, particularly for the ones that you're really committed to, right? Because you're going to need that guidance and that wisdom from the Buddha of how to function wisely in your day-to-day life. And same thing with generosity. Generosity needs to be practiced without any expectation of anything in return. So if we have an expectation of giving something to somebody and we want something back for that, that's not generosity yet. It's not pure generosity. There's still a craving. There's still an expectation. So you'd like to get to the point where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return from this person, not even a thank you. And then that's how you really improve your relationships. Because like with my mom, I practiced a certain amount of generosity as I was transforming my mind to be able to help in that situation. Same thing with my wife. So that's going to be able to help you put your practice into places that these relationships that you're more committed to and you would like to improve, not only are you going to need to do loving kindness meditation, you're going to need to improve your moral conduct, the way you're interacting, but you're also going to need to practice pure generosity, where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. Mm-hmm.
You really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions anywhere. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just end here by thanking all of you guys for coming to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for your interest in growing and developing on the path. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that, either here at the temple, or you can join us online, because I know many of you might be traveling. You can actually come in through Zoom. You can come in through live stream like Facebook and YouTube. You can listen to this on our podcast. All of this is recorded. Every time I teach here at the temple, you can come in live, either in person or online, but you can also watch the recording at your own time. So you might not be able to come at the times that you're coming now, but I do teach in the morning and in the evening. So no matter what time zone you're in, there should be an available class for you. So Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Thai time, I'm going to be teaching from this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And then on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. and Wednesday evening at 9 p.m., I'm also teaching. So no matter what time zone you're in, you should be able to see a class for the group learning program. And then there's other courses and retreats and other programs that are also available for you. I suggest that you start with this first book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the best place to start. It's the first volume of our 13-volume book series. And you can get this online for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing costs so we can purchase more books, or you can order it on Amazon. This is the best place for you to start. And then there's the program of a group learning program and other programs to be able to help you gradually walk through this. And as I mentioned, there's a course next week, Monday through Friday, called The Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment, that's well suited for someone who's really interested in getting started with these teachings. On Friday, we have a social event that's going to be happening here at the temple. You guys are all welcome and invited. And if you have other friends in town, you're welcome to invite them as well. At Friday at 6 p.m., we have something called Temple Game Fun Night, where we all come together and we spend time here. We have some music playing. People usually bring some snacks and food and drinks, and we have these board games, these wonderful board games that we play, really interesting stuff. And we sit around and talk and have fun and conversate, get to know each other socially. So if you guys would like to come or bring friends and other people like that, you're more than welcome to come. Everybody and anybody's welcome. So it's going to be 6 p.m. on Friday. And then on Saturday, we have what's called our Pali Canon and English study group that meets at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And all the 9 p.m. stuff, I do it from my home and I live stream it. I actually don't do it from here. And then on Saturday, there's also a short little course. It's just 3 hours long. It's called Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha. This is a great place for someone to start. It's at 1 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. If you guys would like to attend that just for 3 hours, you're going to be able to learn the teachings of the Buddha from afar. And I'm going to share his very first teaching, which is called his Four Noble Truths. In this very first teaching, in 4 simple statements, you understand the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward in a way that you can independently verify with no belief whatsoever. So if you're interested in getting started, that's another great opportunity to get started, is on Saturday at 1 o'clock in the Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee krap, sawadee krap, sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.